I'll get an intro out of all the random takes I have done. A good intro, not a trashy one. Woo! Hello everyone. Today's lesson is part 2 of this design. Why do I always say design in such an annoying way? Part 1 of design was about simplifying shapes, while part 2 is going to be about implying line and directing the eye and different things like that. There isn't going to be any drawing, actual like me drawing today. I'm sorry if you were like, yay, we're going to watch some drawing.
Yay, we're gonna watch some drawing.
But I made a bunch of examples that I'm going to talk about today and break down the examples and diagrams. And once we get past these difficult art theory lessons, we're going to get to do more fun drawing, a lot more drawing than we have been recently. So do not worry, these lessons aren't going to just be about me talking about pictures with all the time. Ready to go! I'm ready to go! Are you ready to go? I'm ready to go! Let's go! Everything's yellow! First we're going to start off talking about line, which is used in so many things. It's used in drawing, it's used in writing, it's used just in communication in general. So understanding line is really important for communicating well as an artist. So, we're going to talk about the different kinds of line. The first example I want to give you is literal line, a visible line that basically points the way. So, it's pretty much the most obvious one. It's like arrows or like those drama lines in comics. Yeah, that's literal line. The next example I want to talk about is implied line, where you don't really see a line, but the line is implied by the other objects in the picture. So here with all these little BMOs, you see each one is gradually getting smaller. Now I'm going to show you where the implied line is. It's the red line going down all the BMOs. That's gradually making your eye start at the large BMO and go down the small ones. So that is implied line. The next one is sidekick line, which is similar to implied line because it directs the eye without using an actual line, but it uses more visual clues than things like right next to each other to imply the line. So here I have my face looking up at a hand, and you can see my eyes are looking up towards the hand, so that's sort of the implied line of you look up where the eyes are. Another example could be like a hand that's pointing. The next one is continuation, and I just made a random logo for this example because I couldn't think of anything better to make. Should have made something more interesting, but oh well. And it pretty much takes one part of the design and draws your eye around through it. So I drew some lines on it here. You can see to sort of show how your eye gets drawn through the logo, from the fact that the water is flowing around it. The black circle is black and bold, so you see that first, and how that basically it ties everything together. Okay, now that we got past all the lines, we're going to talk about repetition, rhythm, and motion. Now in the field of psychology, yep, the doctor field, there is a theory known as the Gestalt theory. It's the idea that the mind tends to seek out organization in all things. Our mind works together with our eyes, and we like to find similarities among objects and then group these objects together according to shape, size, value, texture, and proximity. Basically, we like to find patterns. And the Gestalt theory is probably why people are racist. Because they like to group people groups together by shape, size, texture, value, and proximity. Wow. Doing art theory and turning it into racism. One step at a time. Moving on. We're going to talk about repetition now. Look at this picture of little tiny heads. Isn't it lovely? No. Keep looking at it. There's something wrong, isn't there? There's something wrong with the picture. You know what it is. It's Kyrie. We should bomb her. Okay. Now, it should be replaced with Sora. That is correct. You got the right answer. Good job, Dora friends. Now, the reason our brains, basically the reason we want it to be Sora instead of Kyrie there, is because, not because we hate Kyrie and we only like Sora and Riku, but because our brain likes to find patterns and it likes things to be organized. Maybe not as bad as Death a Kid, who's, yeah. It's just a natural way that humans work. We like things to be in an organized way. Moving on. Next up is rhythm and motion. A picture that has rhythm also has motion. See, look at this picture of Sora. See all these Soras? They're gradually getting lighter and smaller in the distance. And that sort of creates a rhythm as the eye flows past it of that the biggest Sora, that's the boldest, is sort of fading in closer, so almost like we're zooming in or zooming out, and that creates this emotion for us. Another example are these really super boring lines. Yep, they're super boring. That is because they're all exactly the same, and your eye just moves across it at the same speed. But if you look at this one, it's a little bit more visually interesting because your eye moves across it almost in like a different beat. So like the first one is like bum 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 bum, while this one's like bum 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 ba-dum bum bum. It's like a tune whenever you look at it. I know that looking at pictures doesn't create music, but if you believe. Okay, I should stop talking. Another example of a way to create rhythm and motion is the use of active line. So you can see here, and his CL's head moving like a crazy head because the prince is shaking him to death because he quit school. But that example there, where it's active line, basically adding lines of more than one, where it's at more than one place, it creates motion. And you see that a lot in comic books. And the last one for rhythm and motion is multi-directional objects. That is exemplified here with these roses. You can see how they're going different directions and sort of crisscrossing, and it gives the illusion that they either just fell or they're falling from the sky because they're multi-directional and they're crisscrossing. They don't, I guess, have to crisscross, but crisscrossing also helps create depth and more motion. I'm really proud of that picture. The next thing we'll be talking about is value and color. I've talked about color some in the color theory lesson, but we're going to talk about color I talked about value in the color lesson too, I think. I don't remember. But we're going to talk about it a little bit more again. Okay? So you be super educated. You'll be educated child. Everyone be like, how'd you get so educated? And I'll be like, I watched the YouTube and it educated me. And everyone be like, wow, why did I go to school? And you'll be like, ha ha ha, YouTube is free. Okay, enough about the poorness of education. We will move on. The example here of a fan art I drew of Austin Moon. You will see there's a black and white version and there is a color version. And you're thinking, why am I showing you this? And it is because it is important that your colors basically have defined values and make sense even if it's black and white. Because you can see the outline I drew of him, even though it's brown and it's a different color, I made sure it was darker so that it looks, you see in the black and white version, it's a dark color so it still defines the lines. Basically, make sure you have your color tones able to define your subjects so they don't get lost in the color. What was I gonna say? What was I gonna say? I don't know, 'cause I'm not okay. What was I gonna say? Okay. Organized values. This one is very similar to repetition and probably goes along with the Gestalt theory, because it's about basically how we like to see patterns and we don't like things looking off. Because if you see example A, you look at it and you probably don't want that yellow ball to be there. You want it to be a different color. You want it to match. So example B is an example of it looking symmetrical and like nice and making sense with the values. So that's on organizing your values. Okay, the next one is contrast of values. And values, if you remember, is the darkness or the lightness of something. So low contrast means there's not very much difference in the darkness and lightness. High contrast means there's a lot of very lights compared to the darks in the picture, if you weren't aware of what that meant. And in this example of fan art I did of Sasori from Naruto, on the left is low contrast and on the right is high contrast. And depending on what kind of contrast you use can create different effects. High contrast makes things more bolder and more intense, while low contrast makes things softer and a little bit less intense. And it basically depends on what you would want in your picture, on what you choose to do. But, so yeah, I would say low contrast is like having a nice cup of tea in the evening, looking out over the garden. And then high contrast would be finding out that the tea is actually a demon coming to kill you and you're about to die and it's gonna go Super Saiyan and Yep. Now we have gotten to the best part of all. The part that I tried so hard to explain in the composition lesson. And yet I feel as if I did not succeed. So, hopefully I succeed today. We are talking about balance. Symmetrical and asymmetrical balance. Well, more than just that kind of balance, but mainly those, because it's the most important. Okay, in this example, this is very simple example. I'll do a more complicated example after this one, but this very simple example, you see on the left is the symmetrical balance, because the weight is in the middle and the two balls are the exact same size, balanced on each side. Asymmetrical balance, you pretty much have to shift things over and change the size of things to keep it balanced. So it's so hard to say, but it's just like, I don't know how to explain the trueness of asymmetrical balance. So many people get it wrong, yet it's like an art. Oh wait, this is an art class. Okay, well, I want to show you another example I made of this girl's moles. Now, on the left you see she has symmetrically balanced moles. And on the right you see she has asymmetrically balanced moles. It actually took me a long time to figure out how to make her some asymmetrically balanced moles because this is a character I'm designing for something. But yeah, I was doing some mole design. I'm like, ooh, I'll use this for my lesson. Anyway, you don't care. Let's go. I shifted over the bottom mole to the left because it helps create balance, because if I just kept the bottom mole in the middle and the top mole on the right, then she would have been like too heavy on that one side. So I needed to shift it over to the left so that it kept it in balance, so there wasn't too much weight on one side, if that makes sense. So you pretty much need to keep evening weights out. If you put a heavy thing on one side, you might need to shift it over and put a light thing in on another side. And basically, heavy versus light is the size of how big it is on the page. Moving on now. Well, I'm skadoodling right through this. Skidoodly do. What do? You skadoodly do. Just me and you. Okay. Scale and placement. Ba 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 ba. I just, I just, I lost the picture. No need to fear, for the picture's now here. Yay! Okay. This is about scale and placement. Basically creating balance when you do scale and placement. Okay, on the top, you see the height bar. It shows they are the same height, except for a micromillimeter. I'm sorry. I'm not a perfect person. Okay, they're basically the same height. But Finn is too big in the picture of them together. It just doesn't look right. Like, he just looks too massive. So, you sometimes need to resize the object to make it smaller to create balance, even if it's the same size. You would think it would create balance. You sometimes need to make it smaller, like especially with squares and circles and squares. Like if you think about the Colosseum, not the Colosseum, but the Pantheon, one of the Greek buildings, they literally did measure things wrong so that it looked right to the eye, that it looked the same size. So they actually made the pillars crooked so that it didn't look crooked. It's things like this. It's the illusion of perfection instead of perfection itself. That's what this is all about when creating balance. The very last example of the day is this lovely Akatsuki, and they are going to represent grouping and isolation, which is something I have talked about already a little bit in my composition lesson. Now, on the side I have all the other Akatsuki sort of grouped together as circles, smaller circles, to the right in the simplest form. And I have Pain as the big circle to the left, and he's the main deal. He's the Coolio circle. He's the I would say the focal point of this design. And your eye, when you look at it, starts at Pain and goes through the circles and then back at Pain again. You can definitely see how this is definitely like my composition lesson. Don't go to sleep. Don't try. Please don't sleep. Oh, no, where'd you go? Okay. But yes. Also, one other thing I'd like to note is when we were talking about the lines and how they direct the eye, I added these lines in the background. You probably didn't even really notice them. But if you take them away, it's like horrible. Look at it. It's so blah. But then whenever I put them back in now, yeah, it looks so nice, and it ties them together. So that's how you can use line to tie in two things in design together. Because here they don't look connected that well. Here, they're connected. Connected, not connected. Connected, not connected. Okay, well, I got through all that now. I feel like I'm forgetting something. Something important. Nope. It's the end. It's the end of the lesson. Those examples took me so long to make. Do not worry though, folks. There will be drawing again soon. I'm gonna have drawing and I'm gonna have one more lesson on design. And this is like it's gonna be 3-part design trilogy. I'm gonna have one more lesson. And then and that lesson is gonna have drawing in it. It's gonna be fun. Do not forget I have my Facebook and my Etsy shop in the description, so you can do those things